this week's edition of Think Big. I am your host, Akia Garnett. Thank you so much for tuning in. You are going to be part of a conversation tonight. I really hope you walk away with some tips and some ideas that you can really use in your business. I know you're going to walk away with a lot of great information because I am joined by my dear friend, Molly Phonpadith, and she is the CEO and visionary for the SOAR Community Network, but she's so much more than that. I've known Molly for well over a decade, and she has just soared herself in her own career and in her life. And we're going to spend some time talking about what it really means to soar in business. Now, you may have seen some things that Molly has done already out there. She is a podcaster herself. Again, she is CEO for the SOAR Community Network, and they put on some amazing events and facilitate discussions and meetings for people to really connect with one another and do everything that's required to grow their business. And so we're going to talk about that tonight and so much more. Thank you, Molly, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me on your show.
How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great.
So tell us about SOAR Community Network and who does it serve?
The SOAR Community Network, the word SOAR stands for See, Own, Articulate, and Release. And who we serve is to help the small, mid-sized businesses really soar in the marketplace through their unique message and with their unique mission.
And you offer several critical services. What would you say are your primary competencies or sweet spot?
Well, I would say we actually now, very happily to say, we have really grown in the business. So we have 3 pillars. The primary pillar is the marketing arm. That's the one that I started with.
Right.
That's the messaging support. We build websites. We do social media.
Right.
But we recently just launched our new division, our technology division called Circadian IT.
Wow.
And we're really excited about that. So that's really helping the small, mid-sized businesses really make sure they have the right tools, technology, software, applications to deliver on their marketing promises.
Right.
And then the third pillar is the leadership forum. So when you talk about the events that we host and we talk about the breakfast series that we have,
Right.
all of those are still to help those leaders that are running these small, mid-sized companies.
Right. And so you, I am assuming, learned during your business development and your project implementation that the social media part of it and the marketing part of it would really not go very far if they didn't have a sophisticated enough technology infrastructure.
Yes, I mean, we found over time, I've been running the business for almost 7 years now, and when we launched with the marketing, a lot of our clients would come back to us and say, you know, we feel good about our marketing, we feel good about our messaging, but we're also having difficulty really delivering. So we don't know if our systems need to be upgraded. We don't even know what kind of contracting systems that we want to use, or how do we invoice clients. So that's when really we decided, okay, how do we continue to help these businesses soar beyond the marketing, beyond getting their message out there. Now it's time to actually deliver.
That's awesome. And that's a completely different skill set. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. But what is your favorite part of helping the community that you serve?
You know, I think working with individual leaders who are truly visionary in the way that they see the world, and they are actually tapping into the core of their passion, uncovering their unique gifts and talents. And when they take that and really craft something that's uniquely theirs in the vision and mission mapping process, for instance, they really do transform. And so when they go out and actually build these businesses, you know it's from the heart. They get up every morning, they feel excited about it, and it's not just, you know, starting a business that they're showing up with what they're good at, but they don't love it. And that's my favorite part, is really seeing people love what they do and doing good with running these businesses.
And so what does it really mean then to soar or to be happy with what you're doing in business, where you are bringing that to fruition, what you just said earlier?
You know, I think a lot of happiness in terms of what I want to offer to our clients really starts with my own happiness. So what I had to go through as a business owner, and primarily what I had to go through as a person and an individual and a leader, that's really the hard work, is uncovering what it means to soar for yourself. Like, the definition of success is unique to everybody, and the definition of what it means to soar is unique to everybody as well. So for me, I think having the opportunity to lead people through a process that allows them to believe in themselves, understand their self-worth, know the gifts and talents within themselves are truly miraculous, so that when they build their businesses have that energy. When they put stuff out on social media, when they go to events and they talk about their business, it goes beyond just the copy itself.
Right.
It's the feeling that's attached with that, and it comes from a soulful place.
Do you think that people tend to know when they are soaring?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, you can feel it. You can see the spark in their eyes when they finally figured out what it is that's theirs to do.
Right.
But what it is that they're uniquely designed to offer to the world. And it takes uncovering, you know, it takes, because we have so many different gifts and talents. We have so many passions and hobbies and interests.
Right.
But collectively, what's the thing, the overarching message and theme that is unique within this package called us to offer to a specific target audience of consumers?
Right. And so do you find that people are comparing the concept of soaring to a positive, bottom line?
Yes.
Or,
I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal for us. I mean, I think the ethereal part and the blissful part of uncovering your gifts and talents is wonderful, but you also have to sustain yourself,
Right.
and you have to make profit, and you have to have a business that offers a lifestyle that really is reflective of the word soar, that you can claim that you're soaring.
Right.
Because if you have no money in the bank, you can talk all you want about great happiness and joy and bliss, but you can't come home and be depressed about the next bill that you have to pay.
Right. How do you help people break into the whole concept of soaring and helping them understand that it's so much more than a work-life balance?
Wow. I think it's so much more than a work-life balance, because it really is just about the lifestyle that you choose or you get to experience. So
Right.
it's not about balance. I mean, I think that it's very hard to balance because we have so many things and so many roles we get to play.
Right.
I think it's really about integrating everything
Right.
that we do and just choosing passion and purpose, choosing that internal compass that says, I feel good today about doing this, and taking one role in your life at a time and saying, when I get up in the morning, who do I get to be today?
Right.
Do I get to be the CEO? That's great. Be grateful about that. Do I
Right.
get to be a daughter, a sister, a best friend today? I mean, all those things are important.
Wow. And so when you're pulling together and crafting all of your solutions, and you're working on either the marketing side or the IT side, and now the leadership pillar that you mentioned earlier, you have to have partners to execute some of these things. It's so wonderful to see all the folks that you're collaborating with. I know it's every week where I'm seeing something new out there that has your seal on it, and it just looks wonderful. What makes for a good SOAR community partner?
I think just we keep talking about it. It's the passion. It's the passion to serve. It's the passion to take what it is that you have already uncovered as yours, or in the process of uncovering,
Right.
and offering that to the team, to the community. So when we talk about our team members, our strategic partners, we really do make sure that they understand and can verbalize and can articulate what is theirs to give. Because if they can do that, then we can in turn place them with the right projects and opportunities. So I think a good partner really has to have the passion. They have to care about serving, a community that, and also having a mission and a goal that's bigger than themselves. I think that that's probably the most important. And of course,
Wow.
expertise. I mean, you
Sure.
have to have experience. And I don't necessarily mean credentials on paper.
Right.
I mean life experience. Sometimes people have been through the ringer in life, and they come out on the other side with so much more experience than we could have ever had learning it from books. So we look at all of that, and when we look at projects, when we look at initiatives, when we look at bringing our experts to the table,
Right.
we want people who really want to be there and who are truly gifted.
And you're facilitating all of these sort of connections, or are some of them happening on their own? Because you have several events where people can meet. And
One thing that we're really committed to is creating an environment through our events and everything that we do that is organic. So when we network from a place where heart comes first. So if we our leadership breakfast series, for instance, in the morning, we meet at the Tower Club once a month, and there's no obligation to be a member.
Right.
It's a $25 fee to help us cover the cost of the venue and
Which is
food.
pretty nominal nowadays.
And you come every month with other amazing leaders throughout the Washington, D.C. area, and you share strategies for success. And we really have focused discussions. And I think that's important because when you're a business owner, when you're a leader, it can be quite lonely and isolating sometimes. And I think when you have peers and colleagues where you can brainstorm and throw ideas out there, it's priceless.
Right.
It's priceless.
Right. I mean, to play on lonely and isolating, you're running your business with your husband.
Yes.
Right. So you've got a partner there that you can smile at every day.
Yes.
It's full time for both of you.
Yes.
How do you both divide and conquer each work day and, the business as a whole?
That's a great question. I think we're still trying to figure it out, but the one thing that's really made a big difference for us is we share each other's calendars. And some of my friends and colleagues will say, oh my gosh, he knows everything you're doing, and I know everything he's doing. But it makes a difference because as the COO of the SOAR Community Network and now also running our IT division,
Right.
it's really important that he knows where I am going in terms of networking, coming to this interview tonight in a way of promoting our brand. He needs to know where I'm at because if an opportunity comes in, he needs to be able to position us and know when I can attend certain events, when he can attend certain events. So that's one way. The other way that we do it is really our weekly meetings or even a touch point, at least once a day. Because
So you
we
guys
are
have
off.
you two have a weekly meeting just to talk about the business?
Level 10
Oh,
meetings.
that's wonderful.
Yeah. And sometimes life gets busy and we have to push it here and there, but we try very hard to commit to that weekly touch point. And he is my COO, so we have to also be very diligent on when is CEO and COO time
Right.
and when is husband and wife time.
Right. And I certainly was leading into that question, how do you turn it off? And I would imagine, I've interviewed other husband and wife power couples, if you will.
Yeah.
And they talk about it being difficult. The pillow talk is about business and not about, life, or you're at dinner and you end up talking about the business.
Yes.
How do you all do that?
Well, because he just joined the company last year, it's still new to us, so we're still figuring out what makes sense. And right now we're going through some family things, some illnesses, but everything considering, typically we do carve out time for date nights because that's very important. We have Fridays are typically our date nights, and that is a time for us to really focus on us as a couple.
Right.
And we also reached out to several other business owner couples who are in businesses to mentor us. And we decided to do that early on. So a lot of them give us great feedback, and they've been doing it for a lot longer. So they'll tell us from the start, don't get into the habit of X, Y, and Z. So that's really been helpful, paying attention and getting mentors. But for the most part, we just love each other. So we love being around each other. We love spending the time with each other. And some of our, again, friends will say, how do you do it? I mean, you're always together. And is it difficult? It is not difficult at all for us. I mean, we love, love, love working together.
Yeah, and your skill sets are so unique to one another that it's not like you're overlapping in your work all day, every day, right?
We process so differently. He has a much more analytical mind, and he needs spreadsheets and numbers and formulas.
Right.
And that's very helpful for me because I operate more as a visionary. So I see big pictures. I see graphs and charts. And it really does make a good partnership when we have to do different types of presentations.
So what's the shared sort of language that you all have? Where does it intersect?
We're both very creative. The love of music. I'm a poet. He plays several instruments. So I think that even though he has the analytical mind, that place where he can tap into his creativity and the fact that I'm creative, that's really our touch point. Like, he can understand when I'm trying to describe a concept in my terms.
Right.
He gets it. And if it becomes too technical on his end, he'll know when I have that glazed look over, my eyes, he'll say, okay, let me break it down in a different way.
Right. Yeah, well, that's just great.
Yeah.
And I'm sure vice versa, you can do the same. If he's describing something that's technical and someone needs to really understand it in a more creative way, you can do the same. same.
It's definitely been a great partnership from a business standpoint, but also a partner in life, definitely.
So, it all started when you took a leap of faith away from your financial services practice, which was, by the way, thriving. You were doing very well in your practice. As a matter of fact, that's when I met you, when you were practicing in that space. And you took a leap of faith and you decided that you were going to launch, at that time, Molly Creative, right? Which was the genesis of SOAR Community Network. Some people may not know that.
Yep.
I remember your very first logo and your how great it was.
Yes.
And it's, all of that started, quite some time ago. You said 7 years ago. And so time does really fly. Does it ever surprise you where you are now?
Every day. And it goes even before my days of financial services, because in financial services, yes, there were years where I felt like I was thriving. There were years when I didn't do so well. But overall, it was one of the most powerful experiences of my life, because it really helped me to truly tap into that analytical side that is within me. And I did really well. But it surprises me every day, and it goes way back into my childhood. I think about being a child refugee of war and coming from Laos and in this tiny little boat in the middle of the night, and now I'm in the United States of America, right outside of Washington, D.C.,
Right.
running my own business with my husband
Yeah.
and taking care of, having the opportunity. I get to take care of my family in their time of need. Like, that is a dream come true, and I pinch myself every day. So
Right.
I'm always surprised at that I turned out or ended up here.
Right. And you just knowing you thought that your career would take a different route. Anyway,
yes.
you thought that your profession would be different,
Yes.
that your focus would be different, and to be able to thrive in the space of the arts, if you will, and the creative economy is just amazing. So I salute you for being able to, do that, to step out on that faith and move into a direction that so many people, are just afraid of. The whole concept of entrepreneurship is scary to some.
Well, you know what, Akia, I think you and I, because we've been friends for so many years, we really can't teach what we don't know. And the fact that we are in a position to help small and mid-sized companies truly soar, it's because we've had to learn what that means for ourselves. And we've had to go through the struggles and challenges where there were times in my life where I had nothing, that where I actually, had to look for pennies to put in my gas tank just to make it to the next meeting. There were times when I was thriving and I was on front page of a magazine being top 40 under 40 at some point. I think that helping businesses and entrepreneurs push through some of the difficult or most difficult times of their lives, personally as well as career-wise, I don't think that you can do as good of a job unless you've lived it, because it's that empathy, it's the ability to help them understand that you get it, so they don't give up on themselves, because they can look at you and say, okay, I see that you were able to push through, and here you are now. I think that's the most important thing for us as consultants and coaches, is making sure that we are truly in integrity, because I haven't always been in integrity. And that's why I feel like I'm soaring now, because I have to be honest with myself and what I want out of life, to be able to help people map that out for themselves and run a business that's profitable, at the same time that's really creating social impact and creating and changing and transforming lives every day.
You speak emotional language all day, every day.
All day, every day.
And honestly, you were probably one of the first marketeers that I know that wanted to focus on emotional messaging and emotional marketing. How do you translate some of that when you're meeting prospects? And you can see their challenge, but
Yes.
your way of communicating is definitely unique.
Well, I think, and you've had this experience with me as well, I think there were times when I actually had to call you and say, people think I'm crazy. They think that this is crazy of me to leave financial services and go create messaging from the heart. But I stuck through it because I believed in my heart, and I think that our society and also the business world is finally understanding that the consumers want to know what's inside of you. They want to know the real you. They want to know what's in it for them that is crafted from the unique gifts and talents only you can provide them.
Right.
And I think that I was in a a very difficult spot when I started, but I'm so grateful I stuck through.
Yeah.
Because now people are calling us and
Yeah.
saying we want to be able to emote
Right.
what's in here and out into the digital space.
Right. I mean, and it's just, I hope you feel like a pioneer in the emotional messaging space. If nobody's told you that already, let me just be the first to tell you that you were one of the first to really start talking about emotional messaging and emotional marketing. And it has become something so much bigger than that. It's in every marketeer's dictionary now, but it was not something that people felt comfortable talking about. So again,
Thank
kudos,
you.
kudos to
Thank
you,
you.
to you on that. You have a major event coming up where you're gonna do just what you just talked about, help people connect on
Yes.
that soul level, and learn how to not be afraid or intimidated by the concept of vulnerability when you are in a business setting. How are you creating a space for people to be able to share authentically?
Last year when we had our first one, Akia, I have to be honest, I didn't have a planning committee. I thought about the idea of bringing both heart-centered discussions and very pragmatic discussions to Washington, D.C., and it came to me in the shower because I was looking for events, and I remember thinking of like having to go to 2 different forums for more of the heart-centered spiritual development, transformational work,
Right.
and then trying to go and do business and get developed as a leader. And I thought, this is crazy. That's very expensive.
Right.
And at the same time, like, I want to be able to be around people who understand that both are important
Right.
to a leader and to a business. So I launched the SOAR Community Summit last year, and to my surprise, we had close to 200 people.
Yeah.
We had 50 speakers.
Right. I
and
was
we
happy to be one of those
Yes, thank
moderators
you.
there. That was great.
That was awesome. And we did it in 3.5, 4 months. And this year, and overwhelmingly, people said they wanted another one. So this year, SOAR Community Summit on October 27th is really going to allow us to expand on that first year. So we have world-renowned speakers coming
Right.
from across the country, California, Boston. A lot of local celebrity speakers are going to be on our stage. And what we invite people to do is participate and come and join us, because it's really about developing the soulful leader inside, where legacy comes first. So a lot of topics around heart-centered
Right.
connection to what it means to be an inspiring leader, as well as things like how do you get your business funded.
Right.
But it's all under one roof with amazing leaders who really do know what it means to be profitable and do know what it means to really create some change in their community.
Great. And is there a certain size company that you see as a trend for folks who are interested in working through your services?
Yes, I mean, I would say small businesses, 2 partners all the way up to 50 employees, and even up to 250 employees. That's really our sweet spot. I mean, we work with small businesses, so, it's typically, actually one of our clients has 250 employees. They're ideal because they're willing to invest the money, and they have a big enough team where we can go in there and work with them on vision and mission mapping
Right.
for each division.
Right. And I mean, since you've talked about vision and mission mapping twice now, so I think we should talk about that.
I was hoping you would bring it up.
I think we should talk about that. So why don't you share what that is?
Well, a few years ago, a pioneer in her field contacted me, who happens to be this host today, Akia. We wrote a book several years ago with 2 other entrepreneurs, so the 4 of us, female entrepreneurs, and we thought, we really have to help small businesses communicate more effectively.
Right.
And that starts with helping them uncover their truest vision and mission. And so that's really where the vision and mission mapping process started for us at SOAR. We
Right.
took that concept that we put together as a team, and through our workshops and retreats and forums, we tweaked it a little bit to really match what our small business and rapidly growing businesses really need. So
Right.
it is to your credit, to Jane Lovis and Tamika Bradshaw's credit, that this began for us, and that's what we've been able to use to model and help these businesses now soar.
Right. And you've tested it long enough to know that no matter how great your product, if you don't have a vision and mission, and not just articulated but written down, and your strategic objectives tied to that, you're just spinning your wheels.
And to own the story around that vision and mission, so you can speak it where it's not memorized content. It
Right.
really flows through you.
Right. I mean, so your book, you just mentioned Seen and Sustain, which is our first book.
Yes.
My first book that I co-authored, but it certainly wasn't your first book. Your first book was A Million Fireflies. And I just wonder if people are still telling you about how that book impacted them.
I'll tell you a very personal story. Yes, the answer is yes. And I still have friends who travel the world taking pictures of A Million Fireflies around the world, because we had a campaign where we had friends in London reading the book, and they were at the train station taking a picture and saying, okay, A Million Fireflies is here in London, and we've got Laos. But the personal journey is recently I gave a copy of A Million Fireflies to my niece, so my husband's niece, my niece now, and she recently wrote me a birthday card, and she told me in so many words through the poem that she wrote how she understood that life was painful, that life has been challenging for me, and that I deserve the world and more. And what that meant for me is this young person who's not even a full teenager, she's preteen, read this book and is forever changed and inspired, and really gets the concept of life is not easy, but you can still see hope, and you can still live your life and be happy and be blissful, and move from tragedy like losing my late fiance and having the strength and fortitude and belief to marry this incredible man that's now my husband, Right. So that's a personal story for me that, yes, other people beyond my niece has told me that the book has transformed their lives. A lot of people have written me through the years saying that a friend of theirs had been suicidal, or someone had lost somebody tragically, and the book has really helped them to trust that it would feel lighter again, that they would have a beautiful life one day beyond this pain. So yes, it's I don't think that it'll ever stop impacting me, and I hope that the Million Fireflies continues to just travel around the world and have people
Do you
read
think
it.
there's a phase 2 or
Definitely.
follow up to that?
Definitely. I don't know when the time is yet. I think I have to trust what's in me to write another book. But that book didn't even touch upon my new love now, and life has changed so much since the last chapter of that book.
Right. Wow. Well, stay right here. We'll be right back. This episode of Think Big is brought to you by the SOAR Community Network. Visit them online, soarcommunitynetwork.com.
The Black Student Fund has been around for more than 50 years, and it served as an important resource for many, many families in the area who may not have always felt welcomed to independent schools. For school heads and administrators like me, it's a bit of a party and celebration coming to this, not only seeing other school personnel, but to meet so many families, some of whom have traveled from a distance, and I think they know that this is the one fair where they're going to see all the schools in the area.
Independent schools are such a wonderful resource for all the families, but particularly for families of color who may not have necessarily access that we need them to have. So this is a place where you can literally see every kind of education possible in the independent school world. So we have to give everyone an equal playing field. Black Student Fund allows us to do that.
We provide more insight into the admissions process, which has become more complicated than 50 years ago, so that families understand what they're going to have to do to actually apply to schools, complete the testing that's required for admission to the schools, and to position themselves through the financial aid process.
What I'm trying to get out of it is just basically making sure that I can give him better than what I had when I was growing up, and giving him a better start and the best education that I can give them all.
Luke is a special kid. He's pretty advanced, so we were looking for something that's affordable that we could get him in.
Today is a day when people learn that there is hundreds of millions of dollars in financial aid that's given out by these schools. Today is a day of people making connections about their dream for their kids.
I would say that the Washington, D.C. area may have some of the most diverse independent schools in the country, and I think there's a direct link with the Black Student Fund. I think it's been transformative for many individuals, but also for the schools.
Welcome back. You've been watching Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett, and I'm joined here by Molly Phonpadith, who is CEO for the SOAR Community Network. She's an author, she's a speaker, and she spent some time talking with us about the ways that she's making magic in the world. Tea with Molly, that is an interview show, video show that pretty much syndicated. And is shown in many, many households. I mean, millions of households, right? Do you hear from your listeners often? And where does all of the show airing take place?
I'll start with the more technical answer. We air throughout the Northern Virginia areas and also in Montgomery County. We also air in New York City. So all the 5 bureaus in New York City also now watch Tea with Molly. And we can't say for sure that all 12 million plus households watch,
Right.
but we do reach about 12 million households.
That's great.
Yes.
That's awesome. How does that feel?
It feels great, and we do hear from, especially through our YouTube, and sometimes I'll just get private messages from social media that they saw an episode, and
Yeah.
we still get requests all the time to be on the show, you know, and we're not in production right now. We're
Right.
looking for sponsors because for 3 years we had an amazing volunteer staff. Thank you so much.
Right.
But we also want to make sure that we value them and get them paid. So that's, you know, we're waiting for that to happen. But I will say that one interesting story around the Tea with Molly experience, you talk about, do I hear from people? Do we know people are watching? Because sometimes we don't know. We don't know
Right.
that all this stuff we do,
Right.
all this great content we share is even making an impact. We just sometimes have to have trust and faith that it is. And one day, my sister-in-law called me and said, "You will never believe this. A lady in New York saw your episode with me, and she has a sister in Loudoun County, that's where my sister-in-law lives, and she called her to say that she heard this professional on this show called Tea with Molly that could help her son."
Right.
And so that was the connection, and they were able to connect and work and support their son who has special needs.
How about that? That's such a small world.
It is a very small world.
Well, I mean, just being able to touch, you know, millions of folks. I'm going to believe that the 12 million, all of them watched faithfully. But just being able to make such impressions like that, that gave you an opportunity to not only share what your guests had to bring, but also share your own personal philosophies and a piece of you. What did that show really do for you?
It's a very emotional question. I think that my business, Tea with Molly, the podcast, everything we do in terms of helping leaders really stems from my childhood. And I think that's really important to say because when we really map out our vision and mission for life, it comes from very, very, very long ago, deep places. And I will say the reason why I want to help every single person, every single soul, see, own, articulate, and release their mission into the world is because as a child, I didn't even know that that was possible.
Right.
I lived in a community where everybody just, there was a lot of prejudice.
Right.
There was a lot of shunning. I didn't want to speak too loudly because I didn't want to show up and
Right.
get beat up.
Right.
I didn't want to come across as being too smart because then I would be the teacher's pet,
Right.
and that wasn't good. So it was really a survival tactic for me. But what happens to a soul when you're shushed and you hide yourself is that you really can't flourish. You can't soar. You can't have freedom. You don't have that lightness. And as a child, I didn't have that lightness. And as an adult, my inner child wanted to sing. She wanted to dance. She wanted to be able to say what was on her mind and be a kid. I never got to be a kid. And so in my work, and now that I'm in my early 40s, I am playing like a child in an adult world, and I'm not apologetic about it, and I want all the little souls to come out and do some good in the world. That is my personal journey. That is my commitment, and I am no longer going to be quiet about it.
That's amazing, and I thank you so much for sharing that, because so many people are afraid to just let a little bit of that, again, that vulnerability, that excitement, that just pure enthusiasm for life shine. And the fact that you are doing that and able to make a living from it is absolutely amazing. Now, you mentioned your podcast. You also have a podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So the SOAR Community Network not only has our breakfast series and also our annual summit, we also have our SOAR Community podcast, and it's audio right now. We were just approached, and we're in discussions right now to actually have our own live show as well, and reaches 150 countries. And the SOAR Community Network podcast is an extension of Tea with Molly, where Tea with Molly, we do focus on other people's stories and empowerment, but the SOAR Community Network is a combination of empowerment and spiritual connection, transformation, but really it's also practical. We want to make sure businesses have practical applications that you can dream big, think big, but you got to do big.
Right. The action is where it counts,
Yes.
right? And your husband, he also has a podcast, or he does some things, right?
Yes. So with the new business, the new arm of SOAR Community Network, we're spinning it off, and it's called Circadian IT. He does have a podcast and a business partner right now, and they really are going out into the world, and they're helping these small to mid-sized businesses make sure that they can truly soar from a technology standpoint as well. So it's all kind of in alignment. They do podcasting, they go out and network, they write blogs and white papers and all that good stuff. We want to put so much content out there for people to take advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a listen, and it's definitely a different tone. It's a lot of fun. They sound like they have a lot of fun together.
They've been working together for almost 20 years, if not 20 years already. So the chemistry is there, the trust is there. And when you've been in business, you've been and into IT, especially down in the trenches, they really do know how to make humor and comedy out of the experiences of their work after 20 years.
Right. I mean, you mentioned earlier, just growing up, coming to America very early from Laos, and the journey that you survived, and then coming here, and as a woman in your early 40s, you've now taken up gardening. And you got that, though, from your father.
Yes.
Right? So help us understand how you are just becoming one with the earth, as if you have any spare time.
Well, I think when I grew up, when we first bought our house, again, my father was a janitor for many years until he passed away. My mother is a hotel housekeeper, and she refuses to retire, but I think she will this year.
Right, who, by the way, makes amazing egg rolls. I should not say this on air because I don't want you to hit her up, but...
Well, you might have to. We may start a little catering company for her. So
great,
I'm
your first customer.
When we first bought our house, with all the hard work, 2 or 3 jobs my parents made, and after 7 years, my father went to my godmother, who was a real estate agent, with a suitcase that had $20,000 in it. Okay, janitor, hotel housekeeper, $20,000 in cash in a suitcase to buy our first home. Okay, in that first home, my father needed ways to heal, because he was captured when he was in Laos in the concentration or re-education camps, as they called it. And I know that he had post-traumatic stress disorder. I know that he worried all the time, and his way of healing, of processing, of dealing with all the pain was through gardening. And I watched that, and I witnessed that, and he would teach me certain things about planting and doing, hybrids, and just naturally. And now that he's passed away, number one, it's a connection to him, because I want to be able to, he taught us lessons, why not continue that, learn it, craft it, and pass it on. And also, the way that he was able to process his pain, his sorrows, that's how gardening is used for me. It is my meditation time. I'm also much more of an introvert than I am an extrovert, although people think I'm an extrovert because of the work that I do.
Right.
But the truth is, I prefer to be alone. I just have had to learn how to be around and deal with people.
Yeah.
So as an introvert who has to be extroverted, I need time to replenish, either by time by myself or in my garden where there's no one else, and just the energy from nature to really heal me and give me more energy to keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing in the world.
Right. Your father was instrumental in helping you and your siblings embrace your creative side, even though you had these thoughts of doing something that's much more traditional in a career. You weren't afraid to at least approach that because you had an inside champion in your home.
Yes. My father sang. My father would, get a hold of that mic at community events, and he would just sing his heart out, and you wouldn't think that way because my father was very quiet. But he was also very emotional and was expressive and creative. It's just life had to force him to be analytical. That was his survival skill. And so as a child, I remember my father saying to me, please sing. Because he heard me in the shower one day and he says, you have a voice. Do not shut it. So when I turned 16, we had relatives who had a band, and they used to say, Mali, you need to sing. And so I learned how to sing Lao songs and Thai songs and English songs and even Spanish songs because I was studying Spanish. And I would sing at community events. And that's really where my love, I wouldn't do it professionally. I don't have that beautiful of a voice in terms of I never got training. I have a voice that could write and create music, meaning I don't want to necessarily be out front. I want to create the music and give it to an extraordinary voice that has a passion to be on stage and have them do something powerful with that.
Well, beauty is in the beholder's ear. So I've heard you sing, and my favorite song that you sing is Suerte,
Oh,
right?
my gosh.
That you sang with your husband.
Yes.
And
So
I just
funny.
think that's such a beautiful song, and I think you have a beautiful voice. So
Thank you.
as your dad said, don't shut it.
Thank you.
Let me ask you regarding SOAR Community Network's upcoming event.
Yes.
And where the people are going to be coming from, and how the day is going to be spent. Is it more than one day?
It is a full day. We're going to really determine next year if we want to extend it more than one day because it's jam-packed.
Okay.
It's one day. It's going to be on Friday, October 27th this year in Old Town Alexandria. It's a 5-10-minute drive from Washington, D.C.
Right.
And the day really is set up in a way that we have speakers in the morning. We have a keynote during the lunch hour. We have a motivational moment with an amazing fitness guru that's going to come in and help create some shifts in energy, and then we have afternoon sessions with some powerful speakers. And what we decided this year, which is different from last year, is to ask each of our speakers to create at least 1 to 2 exercises where people at the table will have to speak to one another, will have to become a think tank for one another, because that's really where innovation and creativity can thrive. When you're looking at another soul and you're saying, can you help me solve this problem? And I think we need more of that. So I think that's what's going to be different this year. Last year we had kind of classroom style. This year we're going to have a round table where your group, your focus group, is going to be your peers sitting around the table.
Awesome. That's just great. And what kinds of conversations are you hoping to see take place?
I would like, especially for those individuals, and a lot of corporate leaders are wonderful entrepreneurs, but there's part of them that really wants to uncover whether entrepreneurship or business ownership is really theirs to do. And I would like to see those curious souls really step into their own greatness, ask the right questions, throw themselves in, and uncover whether it is for them or not. Instead of just thinking about it, actually going through the process of really deciding whether or not it is something that they can do successfully. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. We know that, we get that. But to not try, to not explore at all, you're always going to be left wondering. So that's my hope. But we also have some incredible civic leaders, people who don't mind having the 9-to-5 job. That's the way that they feel safe and happy and blissful.
Right.
But their initiatives, their nonprofits, or their project that they want to start to ramp up in their community that's soulful and that's filled with passion,
Right.
I want them to be able to come and get something out of it too. So they don't have to own their own business, or they don't have to run a nonprofit. But if they have an initiative they want to start, they're around leaders and businesses and mentors that they can tap into.
Right, and I'm so glad to hear you say that, because there is such a movement right now that is pushing people who may not have any business being in business for themselves into business for themselves. And there's somewhat of a shame game being played right now if you are not an entrepreneur, if you're not in business for yourself. And I do believe that we all have a uniqueness about us all. I believe we have our own special gifts and talents, and I believe that those gifts and talents can be used to increase or diversify our streams of income for ourselves. However, everybody hasn't found theirs. And so for those who are still finding theirs or just too afraid to even explore that, I just think they should be okay with being able to get a 9-to-5.
You know, Akia, I've been inside organizations where we've had to go in and do some team building, and we have to go in and do some vision and mission mapping for inside the team. And many people, more people than not, they really want to stay in their organizations. They just want to be able to have a chance to express their unique gifts and their unique skill sets and talents and do some good with it inside a company.
Right.
But what's missing right now is helping the leaders of these leaders
Right.
get that they have these unique human beings who really want to take ownership.
Yeah.
But we haven't really allowed them to map out what would make them the most productive and
Right.
happy inside a company.
Right.
So to your point, the concept of this legacy leadership is not necessarily about entrepreneurship or business ownership. It's about your legacy. Inside a company, outside a company, when you go to bed at night, do you feel good about living your life with purpose? It's not about what company's on your business card or what your title is. It's how you feel every day that this is, if it were the last moment you had, did you live a life fulfilled? That's what this event is about. That's what my life is about.
Well, sign me up right away. I love it. And I just thank you so much for being with us on Think Big, for sharing so many different things that you're doing and the successes and the wonderful and positive impressions and vibrations that you're putting out there. It will not come back void. All of that means something. It is impacting someone. And I just thank you for sharing, not only on this show, but just sharing in general. And I invite you to come back when you have more to share. Come back about that book, or come back as you move closer to the event. You said it's in October of this year. Great. So I, again, thank you so much for being on Think Big.
Thank you.
You've been watching Think Big. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. See you next time. This episode of Think Big is brought to you by the SOAR Community Network. Find them online, soarcommunitynetwork.com.